When we bought our new camper, we knew we were going to have an issue with our 12-volt refrigerator when we go boondocking for a week every year. I didn't know how big of an issue we would have, but it turns out we've got to find a solution. So before I spend a whole lot of money, I'm going to try a little experiment with what we have right here. 200 watts of solar power that my brother gave me for the use of my camper for a week. Now, solar can be a daunting thing to try to understand, and I myself don't even really know all about it. But what we can do is hook all this up to our battery, monitor it over the next couple days, and see what it can do for our camper. I'm Hank, and you're watching RotoCityTech. I'm gonna start this video with what my brother gave me as far as the solar. So right here we do have two panels. They are 18 volt, 25 watts. And so we have two there, and then I believe I have 8 in total. 200 watts. With the kit that he gave me, I have these cords for the solar panels that split it into 4. So you can do 1 into 4 so that you can plug in back here each panel, and then they'll both go into just 2 cables. And then right here is, I'm not even sure what Harbor Freight. Oh yeah, these are all from Harbor Freight, by the way. They're pretty cheap. They seem to work while he was camping in my camper. You just plug the panels into here, and then your single output goes right here to your charge controller. So that output would go right there, and the rest of these cables can go into here. And then your little alligator clips here will go onto your battery. So this little charge controller has a couple USB ports, and then it has a solar input, DC output. You're able to plug in a light bulb that comes with the kit that you would plug in these last 2 slots. So I don't know much about this system. I do know this is a 100 watt solar panel charge kit controller, and I believe it is only 10 amps. So I honestly don't even know if this is supposed to work very well with 200 watts or if that reaches its max capacity. I do know that they used this kit the second week while we were camping, or we went for 1 week in this camper, and I only had my 50 watts of the juice pack, and then I had a 100 watt solar panel with a charge controller that I could hook up to the battery, which it ended up malfunctioning, I think because it got wet or something. So we had a lot of issues. But when my brother used my camper that next week, he brought all of this, and they said that it worked really well. So I don't really know the specs on it or what's right or wrong, so I'm going to try to figure that out today, and we'll go from there. Bear with me here. I've done a lot of calculating and this is kind of a annoying little thing to figure out, but I think it's needed. I don't know if I did it 100% correctly. I probably didn't, but this is what we're going to start with. I wanted to figure out what my power consumption might be when I boondock. But first, to start out with the issue that we had. We normally go boondocking 1 time a year for about a week when we go to New Mexico. And we have our generator, which is fine, you can use that. But you don't want to use that when you're in the campsite all the time, because it's annoying. You're out in the mountains, you don't want to disturb yourself, or more importantly, your neighbors who are trying to enjoy the mountains as well. We get there, and this is the first camper that we have that is a 12 volt only refrigerator, or plugged into shore power or your generator, but it doesn't run off of propane. So we weren't quite sure what we were going to get. We have our 50-watt solar juice pack that came with the camper, which from the manufacturer says you can run everything for about, I can't remember if it was 40 hours or something like that. That's not quite true. You've got parasitic draw from other things. We installed some USB fans. We installed some convenience lights or boat lights, what I call them, which I haven't shown you all that yet, which we will do in a mod video. But we got not even a day, and our battery was low, and it could have been that it wasn't fully charged from the beginning. I really don't know. It had to have been. It's been plugged in at the house, but it was like in that first night when our battery pretty much would get low. Like I would look at my voltage display and it was saying like 10.8 or 10.6 or something after that night. So I knew we had some issues because we only have the one 12-volt battery. Now I'm kind of all over the place in this video, but I know this is a problem that a lot of people are going to have. I wanted to try to figure it out. Now, the first thing that we did was my brother gave me 100 watts of solar, and I tried to use that in conjunction with the 50 watts, and it seemed to help a little bit, but I kept getting, I don't know, I think that solar controller was messed up from the beginning. And then we just did what we had to do, running the generator every night or every morning, and then during the day for a couple of hours whenever we knew we weren't going to disturb anybody. But the issue that we kept encountering was in the middle of the night, it got a little cold, and of course we have a baby, Holden, who's only at the time 4 months old or something, and we had to run the heater to keep it warm in there. So there was a couple times when I had to run the generator at night. Luckily our campsite was way out of the way, and you could not hear the generator in any other campsite. So that was awesome. But we have to figure this out. And so the second week, when we came home, my brother used this camper, and he ended up buying 2 kits from Harbor Freight. This is their Thunderbolt Magnum Solar 100-watt solar panel kit. He bought 2 of these, and he has given me all of the solar panels and one of the controllers. Total with this kit, 200 watts of solar, plus I have the 50 on the roof, 250. But what I found out was that 10 amp solar controller that comes with the kit can only run 150 watts. Now I don't know if they knew this or not. So that week that they tested it, they said that it did a lot better. I mean, it was charging at 13.5 to 14 volts in good sunlight. So it did do better for them. They didn't have to run the generator nearly as much. When we got the camper back to the house, I wanted to try to figure out what I needed so that I could at least get, let's say 2 days of good power without having to worry before having to use the generator maybe. So the first thing that I did was plug all this in. I let the battery go all night without being plugged into the house, and it got down to 11.2 volts or something. Now that's with no lights running, that's just with your parasitic draw, your refrigerator cycling in and off, on and off, whatever. And it went from fully charged down to like 11.2. Then I plugged all the solar in and let it sit out there all day. I don't know how many hours, maybe six good hours of sunlight. And it came back up to fully charged. So that was a good start. And I was pretty excited because I had yet to get that with when I was camping. It came back up to charge, so I knew I was headed in the right direction. I just have to kind of fine-tune this whole thing. So here's what I did. The first thing I did is I'm listing out all of the appliances that we might be using when we're boondocking, which is pretty limited. We don't use a whole lot of things. We spend a lot of time outside. We don't use a lot of the lights or anything. But I'm going to read off that list, and I looked up all of the current draw that they take in amp hours. You can just Google it. You can look on the bottoms or the backs of the appliances. But I just Googled and kind of got a rough idea. So our refrigerator, 12-volt refrigerator, I Googled it and found out that ours can do 8 to 9 amp hours to start, and then 2.5 amps to maintain that temperature. So we're pretty lucky in the fact that we keep our camper right here at the house, and we keep it plugged in so the refrigerator will be cold. And then once we travel to our destination, it's still cold. So it won't need that 8 to 9 amp hours to start up and to get cold. So 2.5 amp hours to maintain that temperature. So then we have our lights. So our LED lights on the inside, 0.12 amps. Our USB fans that we bought will be our lights are 0.12 amps. Our USB fans is 0.21 amps. The radio, it says 0.5 amps, but we don't really use the radio when we're boondocking. There's just that display that takes a little bit of amps, which starting out now, I'm simply just going to pull the fuse so that that display won't even be lit up and we won't have any draw from that. Our CO detector is 0.017. Our voltage meter 0.008. Our LED lights on the outside, the awning lights, 2 amps. Water pump, anywhere from 8 to 10 amps. I think 10 amps is more of a high thing, so I put about 8 amps. Our max fan is 4.5 amps, and our convenience lights that I installed are 0.01. And then what I did was list out a chart, which I put the appliance, and I put how many there are, the hours roughly that we use them per day, and then the draw per hour, and then the total amps here. So for example, the fridge, we use it for 24 hours, and it's 2.5 amps. I know that's cycling on and off. I don't know if the maintaining amps at 2.5 is going to be accurate to calculate that by 24 hours, which would be 60. So I cut it in half because I did read one thing that said, you know, it's about 50% usage when you're cycling on and off. So I cut it in half just to, we'll see. I don't know. So we're going to do 30 amp hours per day. Our lights, we use roughly about 4 of them, and this is just kind of a guess. We use very little, but 4 of them, 2 hours a day at 0.2 amps, so that's a total of 1 amp hour per day. USB fans, we have 4 of them. We might use them during the night a little bit, so 3 hours at 0.21, so we've got 2.5 amp hours. Anyway, so I listed it all the way down of everything that we might use boondocking, and I came out to 48.62 amp hours per day. So now that we know how much amp hours we use per day, we can base our solar kit on that. How can we replenish that 48.62 amp hours? Calculating out the 200 watts of solar, when I Googled it, on average, you're going to get 10 to 12 amp per hour charging. So let's say we get 4 hours of good sunlight times, let's do the max, 12 amps per hour. That equals 48 amp hours charged back. So technically, with 4 hours of good sun, we could replenish everything that we use. And a lot of this is overestimated except for the fridge. I really need to figure that out. But this is just a rough start for us. Now, the thing to remember, we only have that 10 amp charger. So when we had all 200 plugged in, I'm guessing only 150 were working. I don't know how that exactly works out, but so let's just say we only have 150 watts. So then 150, so we're going to take away 50 watts, and that comes out to 36 amp hours charged back. So now there's a deficit. But remember, I have the 50 watts on the roof, and that's going to come back as 3 amps per hour. With 4 hours, that's 12. Now we're back to the 48. If I get a better solar controller, which I calculated it out, and I'm going to need at least a 20 amp controller. Probably go ahead and get a 30 so I can use the full 200. And then we will have 250 total. This is so confusing, and I'm sorry, but 250 total watts of solar. So then let's do our 200 watts that recharges us at 48. Let's add our 50, which is another 12. So now we're at 60 So in theory, with 4 hours of good sun and my total of 250 watts, I should replenish 60 amp hours. So let's think about that again with the fridge. If it does take the full 60 amp hours in the day, so now we're talking about a total usage of 78.62 amp hours a day. So we almost replenish. So theoretically, I think we could still go 2 days before we need to throw the generator on and give us a good charge and start back from square one. This is something. Next plan of action. This may be kind of a boring video, but the next plan of action is to get that new charge controller. The other thing that I know is an issue is our battery. We have the 12-volt deep cycle battery. It's an off-brand. I really don't think it's a very good battery. It's not holding a charge very well, it seems. My plan is to get two 12-volt 100 amp hour batteries, and that's going to change the game completely, because then right off the bat, sitting there, you have 200 amp hours that you can use. They say you cut that in half, so we're going to have 100 amp hours, which is fine. So right then and there, you've got 100 amp hours. If we're using the 78 total, boom, we've got one full day just on battery alone. If we throw on the solar charging at 60 amps for that day, then after we use that day, we're down to, what is it? Start with 100 amp hours that we can use out of those two 12-volt batteries. Let's see, 100, and we use the 78. That means we have 22 amp hours left, but then we add the 60 back, we're at 82. So then if we use the 78 again the next day, now we're at 4 amp hours left. So yes, we will have 2 days of usage before we need to go ahead and throw the generator on there, get them fully charged back up, and then we can go another 2 days. So we might be able to do this with the batteries, with the battery upgrade, and then when we can run the generator every 2.5 days. We only have to run the generator like 3 times, which would be freaking awesome. So, welcome to my journey, I guess. And I'm sorry that I'm not more knowledgeable. This is very DIY. And if you have any questions, please ask. If you have any suggestions, please suggest them. I need all the help I can get, probably. This is a work in progress, and it's just going to be that way. But I have a feeling that there's a majority of the campers out there are in the same boat as myself. Majority of the people that watch this channel are in the same boat themselves. So, please, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Look, we made it to 1,000. I got to 1,000 yesterday, which was awesome. I think I'm currently sitting at 1,007 subscribers. So, that means YouTube has recognized this channel, and they're gonna start pushing our channel a little bit harder in the algorithm. So we made it to 1,000. I've got the watch hours already required to be eligible for their YouTube creator program. So here we are, finally getting monetized on YouTube, and that is with the help of all of you guys and gals. And so I really want to thank y'all for that. I'm really appreciative of that. It's been 3 years in the making, 3.5 years almost in the making of building this channel, and finally getting to that milestone is freaking amazing. So thank y'all very much. Continue watching. I got to get those views up. If you have any suggestions on video content or something, please just throw a comment down below. Check in the description for the Amazon links that I might be having. And then, as I'm an Amazon associate and I earn money from y'all clicking on those links and purchasing, if you're going to purchase something, just use one of those links and purchase whatever you want. I still get that benefit of getting the commission, and that really helps this channel, especially as we're going to be buying solar stuff. I'm blabbing a lot in this video. I'm sorry it doesn't have more interesting content, but this is something that we've got to figure out. So anyways, please follow us at RotoCityTech on Instagram, RotoCityTech on Facebook, of course here on YouTube. Hit that red subscribe button, and let's keep this channel going up, 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 where we can really help out a lot of campers. Anyways, y'all have a good day, and we will see y'all in the next video.